All right, so we're coming into 1:30 Eastern Time on Friday, September 2nd, and this is a midday update. I had talked on about yesterday and about today about watching for a personality change, and it looks like that's what's happening. Want to talk about some things that have happened and also what didn't happen. So we opened with a pretty big gap up, and the market internals were very positive to start. I don't know if they're reading somewhat off of the early trade before 9:30 or not, but they opened pretty strongly positive, yet we traded downward. I got to watch that going forward. I'm not an expert in market internals, but especially when it's kind of weird like that, it usually takes time to build up. At any rate, let's go to the profile. This is probably going to be the easiest thing to talk about, and I want to look at it in ones, okay, to talk about what happened. I strongly recommend having a separate profile chart that's in a bigger increment because and this is based on experience years ago, the profile ranges were nowhere near what they are. You could go back and look at a regular trading hours chart for the last 5-10 years and see how they dramatically increased in the last couple of years. It kind of looks like the NQ does, or used to. That's probably, I haven't gone and checked that and seen if that, and looked to see if that has, their ranges have gotten bigger, but I would imagine they have. But they were always elongated and kind of hard to fit on your screen type of thing. So I have this in ones, and you can see that we opened with a gap up. This is the overnight trade, and we had a couple storylines that might play out today. I'm going to pull that in here, and that's what I want to talk about is what's happened and what didn't happen. I think the best thing to do would be for me to take a screenshot again of this. That way I can mark it up, and try and get us out of here in about 5 minutes at the most, hopefully. Let me see. I want to keep this on top, and let's see. Gap up and gap rules go. This didn't happen, at least right away. I mean, we did go a bit more to the upside, but this was not a big runner. And that's what I meant. Looking at taking back all that short covering from this kind of worked, but not really, because the first thing we did was trade downward. I should probably pull in the 10-minute chart, but again, I'm trying to keep this lean and short. So let's see what happened here. So we opened, ticked up a bit, and it just pressed down, but we really only came back and really the first hour, actually hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, was mainly, you could call this a late spike in the overnight. New concept, possibly. And that's how I was looking at it. I'm like, maybe I should just be considering this like a spike and trade it accordingly, because we did seem to have significant volume. Now this is possibly relative volume. Notice how this is the regular trading session in a couple hours, and the volume profile is a lot smaller. So the software sort of, I think, calculates it. You can't compare the width of this to mean it's more volume. I'll have to look at the numbers. Let's just leave it at that. Again, this is streaming consciousness here. Forgive me, I didn't script this or anything. Just want to go through it. Because this was kind of a unusual day. It probably really whacked a lot of people because the fake out was the upside. Now remember yesterday and I'm not saying it was a concentrated or a conscientious fake out, but the way the market traded, we took out finally, let me move this over here. We had this prior poor high in the overnight. At least it is in ones. Should I go back and see if it is in I know I had one. I have it marked on my sheet here what the poor highs were. So just a moment, let me look up here. We had a poor high. The earliest poor high was it's like 4018-ish. No, wait a minute. Nope, I guess it's just where it's in ones. That shows a poor high, but nevertheless, that's worth considering. I've actually thought to keep track of poor highs in both time. I don't want to say time frame. Both dimensions. Let's put it that way. All right, so we just came out, took out this overnight high, and fell back in. But this is the dynamic I want to point out. I mentioned yesterday that very often, if we don't get a lot of range extension in C, and if we don't get much more in D either, that we're going to roll over past the initial balance high or low. Well, I talked about it yesterday. Let's take a look here. Look how we came up yesterday and turned the day around. But notice yesterday, the B low, C came down, then D came down, and I talked exactly about this. I said very often you're going to end up with a rotational day, or it's going to roll back over and you have a neutral day. In this case, it went neutral, but then it just turned into normal variation day because we had this big move up. Possibly we're going to get the same thing today. No, it looks like I already have it. So the range now is the initial balance is looks like approximately half the range. That's the normal variation day, but we have the same thing. We've got a neutral day as well. So we didn't take this out by much, and then one of the tells was D did not take out the C high, E did not take out the C high, and F did not take out the C high or the E high. Again, I'm looking at the ones. I can't remember on the. I guess we could look at it real quick. While we're at it, why don't we look at that? Okay, it's not a great high right here. It's not a poor high, but it's only 2 ticks. So we took that out, and what was I looking for here? Oh yeah, the E and F. Okay, yeah, it did take it out by 1 tick. So we took it out the E high by 1 tick. Well, again, that left all this in the E high. We've got attenuation at the top. What do? Do you start going long into this? Can't get higher. I'm not telling you where the good short was. I mean, obviously we had value higher. We had gapped up. We didn't close the gap. And that's another story because B period came down. Let me pull the ones back in. That chart's used. That was its usefulness. Wanted to just see if we had that poor high in there. B came down. We didn't get to close it. And we came back up quite strongly. Look where C opened up. So that's information, right? We didn't close it, but I would consider this a weak low. So one of the plans, one of the stories was to close the gap. So that actually worked. So this worked. Worth what? I don't know. Let's just give it 5 points. If you got short into that, if you were so inclined, I wasn't inclined to go short. I felt a bit contrarian this morning. Even though this is my plan. Now I should always trade my plan, right? Well, market internals supported continuation. That threw me off. That really threw me off. I got to watch out for that. All right. So, and remember, I make these videos for my own discipline. I'm sharing it if anybody's interested, and it's helps me to talk things through with other traders, even though you're virtual, imaginary traders. All right. So anyway, we're looking at one of the things was to buy. This was story 5. Okay. Buy the prior high day on touch or rejection of yesterday's range. Well, we got rejection of yesterday's range. Now, remember yesterday I talked about not every single one of these things has to happen. This was a strategy. Okay, we got close to it. If you were sitting here with a resting order, you didn't get filled. But once you couldn't get to it, and you saw how, let me split the profiles here. There's 2 things we might be looking for. It looks like I got to touch the C period to do it. Okay, 2 things we're looking for. Unfortunately, I don't have the volume numbers on there, but you can see it. I'm either looking for a big fat ledge right here where sellers were getting what I call stuffed. They were selling into somebody underneath, buying and buying and buying, and they just could not break that wall. And then they give it up, right? Or selling runs out. It's too cheap to sell. Buyers step in. And that's what happened. And we got quite the move up. So there's other opportunities to get in. Now, this is not a trading entry video, really. I talk about some of them, but this was some maybe the overnight low from yesterday. Let me see here. Yeah, this is the overnight low. I guess you could have used that. I didn't. I use a different chart book for my trading. This is for my prep, and I did not have that extending like that. I have the overnight low and overnight high, and I carry them forward for the new day. I don't carry forward the prior day. Sometimes, and this might have been a good one to do it. Well, where do you get long? Well, we remember I talked about this being a real congestive area that might be hard to get through. Well, sure enough, it stopped right kind of on the top of that. I guess you could have anticipated that. I didn't. Another thing would be is once we got out of here, that you could look at possibly. Again, I'm just throwing these out there as ideas. These swing highs against that, against where when I close it up, it's going to be like 3 or 4 wide, right? So once we get down here, maybe again consider this just as you would a base of a spike. Now, if you would have done that, or I would have done that, and I don't remember what I did down here, but that would have been a great way to enter this, right, and take advantage of that. Because we didn't close it. Now, there was no guarantee we weren't going to come back down and close it a little bit later, which we've done not since, but I'm talking early morning session, all right? And boy, it took it all the way back up here, and then C opened. How about that? Now we have a couple things going on here. This gray area, this little extension line here, this is the value area. It is clearly higher, okay? This would suggest that we are not going back down, that we are going higher. And if you were long, you actually got paid to be long to a point. Now, where was that going to end? If you were hanging on for that holy grail of short covering last like several days ranges, you would have, if you didn't move to break even, you would have gotten messed up. But so when we didn't have a very big bar in C, that's sort of an early warning sign. Okay, what's going on here? Especially since we opened up here on the highs. I put some weight in where we open in a TPO. If we open up on the highs here, that usually would mean it's going to continue quite a bit, maybe turn into a trend day. Well, D period was an inside bar, and E period was basically an outside bar. That wasn't engulfing, it was just an outside bar, okay? And then F period opened up, took the E by 1 tick. This would have been a great place to short and risk the high, you know, if you were so inclined, but everything was pointing up. I don't remember what market internals were doing at this time. They were coming off a bit, but they were still positive, I believe. I mean, naturally they would be. Look, just came all the way up there. So it was a bit of a fake out, but when it started taking out the E low, and I thought this might be just a 1 tick situation where it takes out the low, but then I thought, well, yeah, they're going to want the C low too. That happened, and I think I actually had taken a long in here and gotten stopped out. But once it came back into this little volume area thing, it's like, okay, it looks like they're going to take back part of B. But I was not at the time thinking that we're going all the way down here per se. When G opened up and broke the F low on the open, that would have been a great place to enter a stop entry. I was not here for that. I had to go do an errand. But the point is now we're one-time framing down, and quite dramatically. But when this happened, and you know, when it's coming back down this far again, we remember again, this was the tell. Okay, we're probably going to take out the opening range, and if that case, then we're going to have these opportunities that might be available to us with the closing the gap. In this case, the dramatic move down here, I would not want to just had something here on the touch. So this would have been probably off the table as far as. I mean, it worked if you used it as a general guideline for this area, but this was not for the second time around. Okay, not in G. Hours later, because remember, B being a weak low, we're probably going to trade back through it. Well, it's going to trade through it more than 3 ticks, you'd think, right? So the next story would be to re-enter the prior high day late spike and build value, but failed to take it lower. All right, that's kind of where we are now, I think. Let me see where we are. Okay, the late spike, we were calling it 58.50. All right, it has taken it lower. We entered yesterday's range. The value, though, right? We haven't built a lot of value. Now, it doesn't mean that we won't, but we've got a VPOC way up here. So we're getting so far away from that, we may see kind of a rubber band effect later on. Again, we had a market personality change, but let's think going forward, because we still have a couple hours left. And now we're in the value area. We're starting to build value below the value area. The story here was, and again, I anticipated this could happen. Let's see here. Enter prior day's range, build value below spike. That's what's happening now. Rotate to the other side of range. Look to trade from the value area high or spike low to the other side of value and beyond. Well, we could get a retracement. We're a bit far away from the spike low now. Will we go beyond? You know, I'm still a little skeptical of that, but maybe. We had a lot of potential to the downside as far as there's a trend line. Let's see here. We have this 1618 retracement that never got touched. We've got this trend line that usually beckons for a third touch. So you know, maybe not. All the short term trend indicators of the moving averages are pointed downward, more so on the 24-hour session. So I don't know, of course, but we're going to take it a bite at a time, right? That's all we can do. And let me pull the ones up again. Okay, so if you just got short against the value area high, probably when the hang on a minute, let me think here. Okay, I thought it was a different time of day. You know, this would have been, I mean, you could still be in a trade, but this didn't hold per se, but we opened way down here. Now, one could have thought we're going to continue to have these kind of just legs down, right? 1, 2, 3, these distributions, and these barely retracing in TPO. But then there's also the concept of too far too fast, right? In fact, this might be a good point, and I don't have my market internals open right now. I was in the middle of making lunch. I closed some things down, but I thought, well, I'm cooking something, I'm going to make a video. This actually might be good for a counter move to get long against the value area high and risk the low, because that's a lower risk trade. Well, in ones, it's 4.5 points. That's quite, you know, that can be quite costly. So I don't know. It's just thoughts, right? Just thoughts of what to do next. We've got the pivot point up here. You know, we could get short somewhere in here, anticipating we are going to continue lower, and then use the other side of the spike. You know, this is a volume area that we might get kicked back out of. I don't know, these are thoughts, but what we're looking at now is working this, possibly. Building value. So we did fail, we got below the, we did take it lower, so this isn't working. And right now, this is the main thing we're looking at here. Enterprise range, build value below spike. Now this doesn't have to happen, obviously. We came down without really building value. Rotate to the other side of range. So we might be looking for long liquidation. It's one-time framing, so this would be a chance to maybe think about making one-time framing entries. This isn't necessarily a trend day, but if we look at a 10-minute profile, let's see what that's looking like. Okay, I mean, this is okay. So I talked about different ways to enter using a 10-minute profile chart. Okay, might have those opportunities. We aren't even getting back to the midway point of a lot of these, but if you did, as in this case, and you risk the high, you didn't get taken out. So let's see where we are now. So right at the midpoint of H, that's quite a bit of ways away to use that as a place to place your stop. Maybe this above this open. If someone was inclined to short, I'm not right now. I don't have all my gear open to really look to see. And also, here's another forewarning that I take very seriously. I talk about it all the time. This pattern to me is very powerful. This reversal pattern. Now, if you ever see it actually get down where these lows match, I've failed. I think one time I've ever seen it not come back through that. Okay, so when you have this low, lower low, then a higher low than the prior two, this is a pretty good reversal pattern. Looks like a little bit of a trident type of thing. So that's the midday update. I hope that's helpful. I don't really have a new scenario. I wouldn't really want to until we got down to where it does look like we're going to take out the lows. And we really would need to hold inside this value area to really consider that we're going lower. But right now we got rejected out of it. So you got to look at it like that. We rejected out of value. And again, it's a neutral day and also normal variation day, but it also could be rotational. So we could rotate back on up to the initial bounce low, or even further, right? Remember, it's Friday. The afternoon's a little weaker hands usually. In my opinion, my experience, we had the majority of volume traded way up here with the VPOC. So, all right, that's the update. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later. Bye.